And beautiful people, gente bonita, ¿cómo están todos? We are here on the Black and Spanish podcast. I am accompanied by the lovely young lady Maracuya de la Vida, who has told me she makes better seafood tacos than any mariscos taqueria in the world. How are you doing, young lady? Is this true what you said?
Halfway true. Hi, how are you? How are you?
It's a,
How is today? It's beautiful out here.
she can say that because she lives. Ella vive bien cerca on una playa in Mexico. You know,
Sí.
I'm over
Es la
here.
verdad, es la verdad.
Yeah, I'm over here living in the goddamn farms and shit. It smells like cow manure every time I walk a step outside my apartment. Um,
Ah, you can always come and visit. You can always come and visit.
yeah, she says that, but it's hard. It's hard right now. I still ain't got my vaccine, so I don't know if they're gonna let me over the border.
Well, you
Yeah,
ain't going nowhere.
it's cool if I stand by the hey yo if I stand at the border at the gate at the border, can you throw my tacos over the wall?
I can slide them through. I can slide them right through. Have to get
So
them before Border Patrol, though.
oh yeah, because them niggas will take my tacos. I already know.
They will.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
will.
yeah.
They
He
see
ain't
your face.
ain't did nothing but stand in the heat with a rifle all day and think they know they deserve my damn tacos. No,
Yes.
you ain't took a class of
Yes.
Spanish. You better go somewhere. So I don't know. I guess the how would I start this? I guess we'd say how I start this. I would ask is Maracuya, tell the people a little about who you are, who is Mr. La Vida, and how did you get into learning the language that you speak, which is you speak Bambara, right?
I speak Spanish.
But you speak Bambara though, right? I'm being
Basically.
sarcastic. I'm being sarcastic.
Yes, bombada, Mexican Spanish.
No, it's a language. It's actually an African language I'm trying to learn too. It's called Bambara. That's why I was out there.
Ah,
Yeah, it's long. It's a long story. I took my ancestry DNA test. Now I feel like I'm African now. But anyway,
hey, connect, man, connect with your culture.
I'm trying to. I'm trying to. So anyway, tell us a little bit about you. Who is Maracuya? How did she get into learning the language that she speaks, which is English, Spanish, and of course, um, there's a third one that she speaks. Right? You're learning. I forgot.
I'm trying to learn Portuguese, slowly but
Ah,
surely.
que seja bem-vindo. Que seja bem-vindo. But anyway,
Oh, that's so hard. All I'm knowing is obrigado.
yeah. So that means sometimes that can be enough. But anyway, tell us your story.
But yeah, I'm a military brat. Both my parents were Marines, so I grew up in Okinawa, Japan.
Mm.
I've always been around like multiracial, multi-ethnic friends, and I had a really close friend in middle school named Errol, and he basically, he looked black, because he's black, but he looked black like me, and my mind was just like blown when I went to his house, and it was just complete Spanish.
Mm.
And I'm looking at them like, you look like me. This is crazy. I need to know more about this.
Oh, where'd
I need
you went to
I
Laos?
need
You said
more. Huh?
you went to Laos. You said.
No, his name was Errol. I mean, he was Dominican, but I grew
Oh
up in Okinawa. Yeah.
no, I thought you said when you went to his house. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, when I went to his house, yeah, it was just like straight Spanish. His mom taught me how to make flan, and it was just a really big eye opener. And it was just like I want to learn more about this language, and I want to learn more about how Black and Latino intersect. I just was all in from there. And then I got stationed in San Diego in the Navy. So, San Diego is, mini Mexico. So I got a nice immersion experience, and that had me hooked from there. When I got out, I went to college and took a couple Spanish classes. Was like, okay, this is pretty, I kind of like this. And when I transferred for my bachelor's, I decided to make that my major along with international business. And just from there, it's just been, just out here trying to learn. I do speak Spanish every day. I work at urgent care out here in Southern California. So, most of the population is Spanish speaking. So I do speak Spanish every day. Obviously, I'm not perfect, but, I don't let that stop me and just try to struggle through it.
So, what do you think it was about Like I saw you said it's mostly because your friend. You think it was because just seeing somebody who looked like you speak the language and it's so normal. Like was it? Would you think that was the thing that triggered like that interest in? Like I've noticed like a lot of people when they get into learning languages or even people who speak multiple languages, they always have some kind of like moment that triggers like okay now when I learn it.
Yeah.
I'm only asking that because I would figure if you were in Japan, some people would think like, oh, maybe you'd want to learn Japanese because you were there and they speak Japanese. But then you never thought about wanting to learn Japanese too, or that just never even appealed to you at the time.
So in elementary school, we all learn Japanese. Like we all take like Japanese classes and do culture classes.
Oh, really?
And then when you get to middle school, you get a choice. And I know it sounds kind of silly, but you have to remember I was raised there, so it was my normal. I didn't have a context of, oh my God, you're growing up in Japan. It was just like, this is where I live.
Right.
I always hear Japanese. I didn't really hear Spanish like that, so it sounded more like almost exotic. I was like, I hear Japanese all the time, man.
It's kind of
obviously not thinking.
no. It's kind of like
It
how
sounds funny to somebody in the U.S. They're like, really? And then I got here like, oh, everybody speaks Spanish.
no, it's kind of like how when you come to the mainland, like out here, it's really popular for kids who go in high school to take French because it sounds exotic and it sounds like nothing that you'll ever meet. It makes you think of Beauty and the Beast. But it's like, it's like in my mentality, it's always been like, how often are you going to use French if you learn French? But it's the cute thing. It's the cute thing to know. It's the exotic, cool thing. I want to sound romantic. I want to sound like Vincent Cassel and what was that movie with Natalie Portman, Swan Princess? Did you ever see that movie?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a guy. That crazy. I'm gonna watch that tonight. I haven't seen that in a while. So, I guess I ask everybody. I ask everybody this. I'm gonna start doing this in the podcast. Asking everybody this question: what do you think was your proudest moment in Spanish, and what do you think was your most embarrassing moment using Spanish?
Let's see. I think my proudest moment in Spanish would be. It's super dramatic, but when I was in Imperial Beach at a farmer's market, and there was this little girl, and she's just like, I see her, she's like maybe 4, and she's just like unattended walking around, and I'm a mom, so I'm looking like, where's her adult, So I'm just kind of like keeping my eye on her, like, where's the adult behind her? They should be pretty close. And then she's just going like, mama, mama, and I'm like, oh God, she's lost. So I walk up to her, and I'm like, amor, amor, ¿cómo está? ¿Cómo está? ¿Dónde está su mamá? ¿Dónde está su mamá? She's like, no sé, no sé, no sé. And she just starts crying, gives me a hug. Just the fact that I was able to communicate with her. And then we were able to find her mom, who was completely distressed. And it was just being able to communicate with someone else is just, it opens up so many doors. It really does.
That's good. Damn. Did her mom offer to make you tacos when you met her?
And right now, we were already at the farmer's market, but she just started crying and hugged me and was just like, oh my God, muchísimas gracias, muchísimas gracias. And I was just like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. I know how kids are, but just being able to communicate, that's a positive one. But, I've had embarrassing ones. So, out here in TJ, there's a really popular gentleman's club called 𝐈𝐧𝐬𝐿𝐴das. And it's a strip club, super, super popular. Everybody knows about it. If you live in San Diego or Tijuana, you just know. The word for wings, chicken wings, like, you're making chicken wings, hot wings, is alitas.
Mm-hmm.
So, for a smooth 2 weeks, I was going to the local Soriana, which is the grocery store, like, estoy buscando para arelitas. And I'm just wondering why, like, I'm getting, like, Snickers and just, like, they're, like, looking like I don't understand you. And I'm like, I guess they don't have wings here, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe I need to go to the carniceria or something. It's like, okay, whatever. And I was at work one day, and I was was talking to the girls at work. I work with, most of the girls are Latina. And I was just talking about, I was like, yeah, I was looking for some arelitas and I couldn't find anybody. And she was like, you were looking for some what? And I was like, for some arelitas. She's like, for the strip club? And I was like, no, for some chicken wings. She was like, girl, that's arelitas. I was like,
oh no. My God. Bruh.
And I was so confident asking for it.
I'm gonna tell you how fucked up.
It made so much sense.
I'm gonna tell you how fucked up the guys you're talking to. They could have easily explained to you what you were. They could have easily took the time to explain it to you.
For sure. And that was in my early Spanish days. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I probably wouldn't even have the vocab to even receive that. But I was just like, oh, that made a lot of sense.
I think there's a phase we all go through in Spanish where I always tell people there's always going to be a phase you go through where you just saying shit and you have no idea that you're saying something wrong.
Yep. And you're confident.
And you are confident. You are confident. You were confident that when you asked that grown man in front of Denny's, "Hola, señor, ¿cómo estoy?" You knew what the hell you were saying. You were so confident, but no, you didn't know what you were talking about.
And they're so awesome though. They'll pump you up and be like, "Oh my gosh, your Spanish is so good."
And and I'm gonna tell you something, girl. I have been telling people this a long time. I've been saying this this is the problem with Latin people in general. I had it with Brazilians. I had it with Mexicans. They will just be so nice to you just for the fact that you can say 3 Spanish words somewhat in the maybe correct order that they won't even take. Right. They won't even. They'll just say, "Oh no, but you speak well. You speak well. You can't." Anybody there
head all the way up.
Anybody out there who's listening to us right now, let us reiterate: do not let them get to your head. Do not do not. That is.
They are just excited and proud that their culture is out there and you're interested.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you, it ain't just them. I'll go through the same thing with Indians. I've been trying to speak Punjabi for a minute, and so like when I say little words to them, I know good and well that my big ass lips can't pronounce those words correctly. So I'm saying stuff, and I know I'm saying it wrong. I know this is not the way that the woman told me 3 days ago how to say it, but it's like, oh, you speak good Punjabi? Yes. Anytime you want to come to my country, I'm like, I know I'm not doing this right.
They're the best hype men ever, basically.
Oh yeah, way better than who was that? The little light skinned dude who used to ride with Busta Rhymes? Was it Spliff?
Was it?
You ever remember?
I think so.
Well, that's his name. The little light skinned dude. He used to always be in the music videos with Busta Rhymes. His name was Spliff, I think, or something like that.
I think so. I can't remember his name though.
Yeah,
but I think you're right.
Well, he ain't no better. They're even better hype men than him. So I think. But I think that's the hardest part about any language is like being your best critic.
Yeah.
Being your best critic, and then I don't know, like I guess being your best critic, and then also being able to be honest with yourself versus being cool with what people are telling you, because you can get by for a while just speaking broken Spanish. But
that's the thing. That's the thing. But that's like not the goal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through right now because I can speak Spanish, but right now I'm trying to. I don't know if I told you. I think I saw you saw it on Facebook. I'm taking my court interpreter test next week. So
yes, I did see that. Yeah. Congratulations.
Hey girl, girl, tú sabes. So, but I'm bringing that up because I've been spending the last week just trying to change totally how I speak Spanish, like use all the big words that I forgot or didn't know, like I'm going through the example test that I have for the written exam, and every word I find in the test that I don't understand, I'm trying to research it and then trying to look up for the synonyms, the antonyms for it, just so I can kind of expose my mind to bigger, like I guess because it's I guess that's the hard part, I guess, I guess. How far into studying Spanish did you get to the point where you felt you could communicate and have regular conversations with people on the streets?
To be honest, because of the immersion in San Diego when I was in the Navy, I was confident before I could really even talk. So I would look up how to say things just so that I can communicate with people on the trolley. So I'd look up how to say, "Oh, I like your dress," so that I could compliment someone or a girl, and then see like what she'll say back to me. And even though I might not understand, I'll be like, okay, okay. After hearing it a couple of times, I'm like, okay, we're gonna look that verb up, see what's going on there. What's that phrase mean? Because that's how I learned "que tenga un buen día." I'd always hear people say that when they're getting off the trolley and waving bye, and I'm like, I know adios means bye, so what's all that extra stuff?
Right, right.
Just hearing it over and over, looking, and I'm just like, oh, it's like, have a good day, and then just repeating it.
That's
just parroting, basically. I love it.
No, that's a smart way. I think we've all used that tactic. We Google real quick. Hey, yo, how do you look up? How do you look up? I want a big burrito. I want a grande burrito, and then you go try it out, and then you understand. When you look up, how do you ask what the price of something is, and you'll understand when they say, "Oh, it's $6," but if you want something, you're like,
oh no, I didn't get none of that.
I didn't get none of. No, I ain't get none of that. Like, I ain't get none of that shit. I don't have time to Google all that shit. So I love it. So then a bigger question is how. So I can say from my experience with Spanish, like, my biggest issue with Spanish was speaking to me was easy because I came into Spanish with Portuguese. The hardest problem I always had with Spanish is good now, but was listening comprehension. That was weird. That was the one that really hit, was my struggle for a while. Because when I came into a Portuguese, I could understand, but it would just be key things. I would be like, oh shit, I didn't. Did you?
I didn't catch that. Yeah.
What was your hardest issue with Spanish?
I would say when I first started learning, it's just the speed, and it sounds silly now because I'm like, I speak quote unquote Mexican Spanish, which isn't like super 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 fast compared to like some of the fast ones out there in Latin America, over there in the Caribbean. Shout out to the Puerto Ricans and Dominicans who are like spitfire.
Oh, they go. But I love their accent though. I love it so much. I love it. It's just it is so difficult to understand. But
it is. It was just like I just felt like everything was so fast. And now that I speak it, it's not really that fast.
Yeah, no, it's everybody. If you don't speak, I think when you don't understand a language, you always think it sounds fast to you.
Yeah.
But
I still think Dominicans sound fast, and I still don't know what they're talking about.
I mean, I can understand Dominican Spanish. I'm actually learning Dominican Spanish because that's the one that really interests me the most now. But I think what it is with Dominicans, this is what I've learned. To anybody who's listening right now, because I think a lot of people go through this part too. Like, will they'll study a language and they'll get maybe a year or two deep, and they'll still have issues understanding people. What I've learned is a lot of times when you got an issue understanding people speak, you have to look at what's the reason why you didn't understand what they said.
Yeah. Like,
for example, if you talk to people from down south, from Alabama, shout out to my cousins out there, Montgomery, Troy, and all of them. If you go down there and I had a friend. We talked about this in the last episode. She's from Brazil and she went to Chicago for a minute. She was telling me how when she went to Chicago, she's like, I was in ASU when I was with you, and we had no issue understanding nobody. I went to Chicago and I didn't understand shit that nobody says. But and she said she was like, oh my God. She just was like, I can't. She said it on the episode. She was like, oh my God. I felt like, oh my God, I can't speak English. What the fuck am I doing here? I don't even know. But
it be like that. It does.
But context matters. The contextual reason why she couldn't understand is because when you go to, I've been to Chicago before. When you go to Chicago's like going to Oakland. It's like going to LA, not LA to a certain extent, but like kind of Oakland, where when you go to the urban areas, because that's where she was at. Her apartment was right next to Harold's Chicken, so you know she was somewhere where it was black.
Yeah.
They use black people generally, we use so many expressions in regular day-to-day speech that we don't realize how different that is from the standard English that you might know.
Yeah.
Like we use so many. It's so many little expressions and shit. I got my little brother. He grew up in Pennsylvania. He grew up in California. This nigga says, excuse my language, but we in a podcast. Fuck it. This nigga says John for everything. John, everything is a John. Hey, yo, I was talking to this John the other day. Hey, can you slime me a little John? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck is a John? I didn't know this was a thing until he called me one day from jail like a few years ago, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is a thing now. Okay, that's what Meek Mill's been talking about all these years. Okay. But so back to what I was saying, a lot of times, like when you listen to Dominicans, it's hard to understand them because they use a lot of expressions and they cut all their words off.
Yeah, for sure.
And they cut their D's. Like they don't say pegado, they say pegao. Or they don't say toro, they say toro. Like,
yep.
It's almost, you gotta kind of.
It almost sounds like it's on the way to French or on the way to Portuguese, really.
You know what? Funny thing, when you go to the Dominican Republic, they have a region. I was telling her this in another episode. They have a region called Cibao, and in Cibao, their accent is really different from everybody else who speaks in the Dominican Republic. And they say the reason is because a lot of African Portuguese slaves, like slaves who were under Portuguese control but came from Angola, they went there. So they speak Spanish like for example, they say their R's like I's. Like they don't say cantar, they say cantai. Or they don't say mujer, they say mujer. Or querer, querai.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So I guess since we're on going to the accents, what's your favorite accent to listen to in Spanish?
Of course, I have to, hold it down for our Mexicanos all day.
La raza.
That red, white, and green. But I love the Mexican accent. I just fell in love with it. Even though they're all so beautiful, though. They're all so beautiful and so unique from country to country. It's from Spain with that, like, lisp that really just kind of grinds my ears. But I have to let them be them.
You think the Spaniard one is beautiful?
No shade.
I'm shading shit. I'm pulling the whole blind down. You think the Spaniard accent is beautiful?
No, the Spain accent gets on my nerves.
Yeah, that shit is so gente.
I'm just like, oh my god, that lisp is just too much for me.
Gente. That sounds like, you can tell that's a country that does not have Listerine. Like they talk like they talk like they're just gargling from them. Gente.
And they do the whole vosotros. So when I was in school learning Spanish, I just remember our professors, like, because most of my professors are Mexican, so we didn't have to learn vosotros, and I just remember going like, oh, thank God, that's one more tense I don't have to learn. And I'm like, oh, that's from Spain. Okay, yeah, no, I'm cool on Spain Spanish.
No, we don't want to. Now, I will say I took my DNA test. I found out I'm 3% Spaniard, so there's a part of me that does want to go there, but I'm still gonna go there and talk shit about. Yeah, I'm gonna go there and talk shit about their accent though. I ain't gonna talk shit.
For real.
Hi vosotros. But my favorite accent is I really like the Dominican accent. I just love. Yeah. I love the Dominican accent. The Venezuelan accent to me is kind of pleasing. I like the I like the Dominican accent just because, I don't know, it's something just so charming to me about it. Like, I like how it's like Dominican Spanish to me in a lot of ways, at least the common everyday speech, it reminds me so much of like Ebonics.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that, kind of
like
dropping off letters and mixing kind of stuff together.
Like even like I used to always say with Dominican Spanish, even when I couldn't understand it, I could get the concept of it. Like, okay, it makes sense. You ain't saying, like, you're not saying ¿cómo estás tú? You're saying ¿cómo tú estás? I get what you mean. You know what? Honestly, because if you what kind of Portuguese are you learning?
Brazilian.
When you learn Brazilian Portuguese, me and my friend were just talking about this in the last episode we did. It's almost the same thing because in Portuguese, like even in like not in professional settings, I guess they cut off key words. Like, do you already know the difference between like você and tu and that's that kind of stuff yet or not?
Yeah.
So when you go to Brazil, 9 times out of 10, if you're talking to somebody, even if you don't even know them like that, they won't say você, they'll say se.
Yeah.
And they won't say como tá você? They'll say como tá você? Você tá bom? Oh, você tá bom? Você tá bom, mano. Like, they'll say that type of shit. Now, when I first started practicing Portuguese with my friends, that shit used to confuse the fuck out of me.
Yeah, because you can get stuck because you learn what you learn and you're like, all right, I'm just ready for this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what, man. I remember the hardest time I ever had in any language was when I was learning Portuguese, and I never forget. It was my first semester. 'Cause I never took a class. I just was living with hecka Brazilians, so I started practicing with them. And man, Maracuya, we used to go to Domino's Pizza. We used to go to the clubs together. We used to go to restaurants, girl, and I would sit at the table with these niggas, and they would just be talking to me and talking to each other in this language. I couldn't understand shit.
But the vibe was there.
The vibe, I was scared. I was lost. I couldn't understand what a plate was, what a chicken wing was, what a cup was. I was just totally, it was like,
out there.
Oh my God. It just, now all I just knew was like, I didn't know what they understood. I didn't understand what they were saying, but I just love the way their voices sounded. I love the way the accent sounded. I was like, I gotta learn this. And bro, it just was I don't know. I don't know. You ever that's the funny thing. You ever take time to think like how far you came from not speaking a language to speaking it now?
Yeah. I remember I used to make up my own Spanish.
Really?
Before I knew anything. Just trying to get the rhythm down.
like
now I can like communicate. And I can communicate when I'm angry, when I'm sad.
Now another thing I want to ask you, you live in Tijuana, right?
Yes.
Do you see a lot of Haitians there?
Yes, there is a growing Haitian community out here that wasn't really here maybe like 5-6 years ago, but they have integrated into the Mexican community so well that I feel like they give the African Americans coming across the border from San Diego a good look. You know what I mean? Because they've come down here. Most of the Haitians already speak Spanish, and if they don't speak Spanish, they learn Spanish within a year or two of being here. Just work right alongside the Mexican population. They're just right in there. So that's a very positive thing.
How is that's what I was gonna ask. I've heard mixed opinions about most people who I've talked to who told me about the Haitians in Tijuana. They've told me that they're well received. I met one woman who told me they weren't, but most of them have told me they liked them because they're really hardworking and they're
hardworking. Yeah.
You know how they say, he's a man's man.
Yeah.
They say he's a Mexican's Mexican.
Yeah.
It's like they like them. Now, when they speak Spanish, what does their Spanish accent sound like to you?
It sounds pretty authentic. You can hear an accent of something else, which is usually the French that kind of comes out in certain words that they might say. You You're like, oh, that sounded weird. You're like, oh, that sounded a little bit more French.
You're like, okay,
Yeah,
that didn't sound normal, but okay.
yeah. But otherwise, they're right in there, man. It's just awesome to communicate with another black person in Mexico with a language that is not native to either one of us.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
pretty awesome just to think about that head twirl.
Oh, that's interesting. Like
Yeah.
when you're out there, do people naturally think that you're Haitian too, or they just automatically know you're?
When I'm outside, people are usually like, and they hear me speak Spanish. I usually, are you Colombian? Are you like Dominican, Puerto Rican? You know, all through the Caribbean, Spanish, to explain why I'm black and speaking Spanish, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually get those.
Mm-hmm. They go. I just went through that yesterday. They go through the whole line. So where are your papas from?
Yeah.
They're my father's from New Orleans. My mother's from North Carolina. Where's
Okay.
your grandma from?
Yeah.
Damn it. Okay, damn it, woman. No, I know you're not gonna. You're not gonna.
15 minutes later, halfway through my family line, oh, I get what you're meaning.
Yeah, it's like, so where's your great grandma from? It's like,
Yeah, you're like, oh, no, I'm not ethnically Latino. Sorry. No. You
actually,
should have just asked.
no, fact. I want to ask, have you ever taken your DNA test?
I haven't.
I took it, and it's interesting, bro. It's when I talk to people sometimes about that, I used to kind of go through a phase where I think I told you before, my grandmother and my grandma, my dad's side, they both spoke French. My grandma,
Okay.
my grandma, she died in 2015, but she spoke French, Portuguese, and Creole. I think she spoke also. But I used to always say, like, especially after taking that test, it was kind of a moment where I was like, dang, like, so am I more of this, am I more of that? I always feel weird when people ask that now, because like when they ask like are you part, I could technically say that, but then I'm kind of like, I always feel like culturally, I always say, well, culturally, I'm African American. I was raised African American. I grew up doing the thizzle dance. I grew up doing the
Yeah.
electric slide. Like, that's what I am, and that's who I am now. If you do some research, there is some increment. Like I said, on my father's side, they're Haitian when you go past my grandma and great grandma, and there's a Creole, and then one of our great grandfathers was Spaniard, all this other stuff, etc. But culturally speaking, I feel more African American. I do
Yeah.
feel though, I don't know, I can't say for most people who are but who are kind of like when, I don't know how to explain it, but I do feel like for me personally, when I was learning languages, there was a part of me that was kind of looking for some kind of acceptance or kind of into different cultures. Did you go through that too, or no?
I would say, yeah. I think we all kind of look for that acceptance, I guess, that you just kind of spoke of, you know, just, I think it's natural, though. It's
Yeah,
definitely natural.
yeah. I think it's kind of like a way of kind of growing into yourself. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
you go
It's
through
weird, but yeah.
that phase where everybody in your family's like, "Oh, you think you Mexican now? You think?"
You don't even know.
Yeah,
You don't even know
shit. They told me that shit when
how
I
much
was
I've
learning.
heard this, and now that I can communicate, and oh, when you need a translator,
Yeah.
things have changed now, huh?
Yo,
Leave
yes.
the black Mexican alone now, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's fucking yeah. They told me that shit when I was learning Portuguese. I'm like, it's not even the same thing, Mom. God, but but
I
it's
think it's just, I mean, it's kind of sad in a way. It's like, come on, just because we're black, that doesn't limit us from learning a language. Come on now, because there are black people in that culture that speak that language, but a lot of people have to kind of delve out more and be more interested in other cultures and what's going on out there, and not just yourself. You know, look for yourself in other cultures, and you'd be surprised what you find.
well. I think this is the biggest issue, and this is kind of why I'm doing. This is halfway why I'm doing this podcast, and this is why it kind of fascinates me about black languages, because there's always been a very big misconception in the black community that black people are all a monolith. Like, we all have to do these certain things. We all have to talk these certain ways. We all have to wear these certain clothes. When there's
right, in order to meet the black criteria of the year and receive our card in the mail or something.
Oh yeah, no, just to receive our daily membership and etc.
Right.
etc. Our card comes in a little black envelope stamped by Chief Keef and stamped by Beyonce. It comes right on top of an Ebony and Vibe magazine. Like, yeah, it's like we all have to meet this weird ass standard, and we're not all like that. We all have different interests. We all have, I think the biggest, that's why I kind of love the space we're in nowadays in 2021, because I'm seeing all these different groups and all these different areas pop up for black people to say, like, this is my interest, and thank God there's, remember that show that came out last year, Lovejoy, whatever it's called, you know what I'm talking about, but I'm not saying it right.
The sci-fi.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I think did it get renewed?
No, it got canceled. No, it got canceled. Yeah, I'm sure about to watch it again after I watched Black Swan today. But I'm bringing it up because what was cool about that was that show came out, and I saw all these groups on Facebook. They were like these black sci-fi groups or these black YouTube channels that I didn't know existed. They were talking about, like, oh, how they were fans of this, or even find like the people who were into anime, like the black. I grew up on anime. I grew up on anime and manga, and I can tell you, when I was a kid, it was not cool for black kids to like anime and manga. Versus now, I see Meg Thee Stallion taking photo shoots with fucking Sasuke and shit, and saying how she watches JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I'm like, I'll be goddamn, like, I'm like, what the fuck, like, what? So I like that nowadays there's more conversation for black people to have different interests outside of just hip hop and street shit.
Basically.
Yeah,
basically, because we're very varied. People love to do a bunch of different things. I'm kind of like a hippie. I love to plant stuff. I love plants. I love growing stuff. So I have plants all over my house. I'm trying to do a little mini garden out on my terraza. So, that's my thing.
Do you have an aloe vera plant?
A bunch of Facebook groups for planting. That's my thing,
Do you have an aloe vera plant?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then I'm coming there just for aloe vera plant. I would cut me off a few leaves and put that in my bag of seafood tacos when you throw it over the wall. And I will. So one thing I want to ask too, because I've heard you speak Spanish. You speak pretty well. When we have our little group discussions, you're one of the better. You were in the top best speakers we had in our group little calls we had in the Facebook group. What do you think was the thing? I feel like everybody has, like, I always say I feel like everybody, and then I'm be wrong about it, but I feel like everybody has like some key quality that helped them learn a language or help them. Like, for me, what always helped me was just, I'm not scared to fuck up. I'm not scared to fuck up. Like, 90% of my Spanish and 90% of my English, Portuguese, I learned just by talking to people in the streets and saying, fuck it. If I gotta fuck up, I gotta fuck up. If I fuck up, I gotta fuck up. I gotta keep going. What do you think was the key thing that helped you?
Honestly, my exposure, like, I have a lot of Latino friends. I have a lot of Spanish speaking friends. So just naturally just being around, you soak up so much more than you could ever think you could, because you're just kind of like a fly on the wall, hearing stuff as it naturally occurs versus a book.
Right.
It's different the Spanish I learned in school versus the Spanish I speak at work, or the Spanish I speak when I'm at the grocery store. It's different, and just having Latino friends, Spanish speaking friends, was a major thing for me. So it's like, regardless of where you live in the country, whether you're on the West Coast, then it's a whole lot easier to find a Spanish speaking friend, or you're on the East Coast maybe in some small town, just try to make friends. There's somebody Spanish speaking everywhere. just don't be afraid to just try to make friends. You might feel weird. You might feel like, well, this isn't the norm for where I'm at. Like, don't worry about all that.
Now, what would you say to those people who, let's say they want to learn how to speak it, they say they want to make friends, they want to talk, but they're, not everybody's gonna, like, I'm stupid. Like, I will really talk to people in the store who I don't fucking know and ask them, "Oh, where'd you
I'm
from?"
weird like that too.
Hey, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. Damn it, that's why that's where we're at today. But what would you say to those people? Like, what should they do who are really shy or kind of just feel really uncomfortable trying to make speech?
Once again, I feel like it's all about exposure. So if you're a little bit like, oh, I don't really want to just walk up to someone and just start like, hola, ¿cómo está? Well, where do most of the Latino people in your community hang out at? Where do they grocery shop at? Are there any festivals going on? Are there any holidays going on? Like, get into it and just be around, and you'll be surprised who you meet and how things go.
That's
and
true.
How your Spanish goes.
That's true. I agree.
There's always something somewhere, like some type of Latino association where you're at. Maybe they're doing like something for Dia de los Muertos or Mexican Independence Day, which is coming up on the 16th of September.
True. Or you can't join a gang. That's always an option. That's also
another way to
that's also
no. and experience. Maybe not the one you really want, but it's an option.
The funny thing about that is when you come up this way, there actually are a lot of gangs. Well, there's one particular gang, but there's one particular gang out here when you come in Northern California. They actually have a lot of black members. It's fairly common. It's not common, but it's like if you, a lot of times they'll grow up in a neighborhood where it's hard to explain. Most of our neighborhoods, when you come to Northern California, even when they're black neighborhoods, they're never necessarily an all black neighborhood. They're usually like 50-60% black and 40% Mexican.
Yeah, I'm like, we all broke together, so I know we're,
it's like, yeah,
we're cousins, so I know we're right here.
Like, listen, both your mama and my mom was both at the WIC office together this morning. Don't act like y'all better than us. So it is what it is. But it's beautiful. I mean, for me, the most beautiful thing about learning language is like when you get culture. It's just getting introduced to somebody else's culture. Like when you get introduced to a totally different culture and see like their whole different. The coolest thing to me is like when I meet somebody who's from a place that I didn't know, and like I was trying to learn. You ever heard of mom?
No.
Mom, it's like so Guatemalans. When you go to Guatemala, they have a lot of languages there, but one language they have is called mom, and I was trying to learn that for a while, but it got hard because there's not a lot of resources to learn it because it's like a really like it's an indigenous language.
Super traditional languages.
It's one of them languages. There's not a lot of like if you trying to learn, but that's one thing. And this is why I'm biased. This is why I always tell people I don't understand how people have a hard time learning English or Spanish. If you have a smartphone, there are so many resources for you to learn English, Spanish, Arabic, and Chinese. You can watch The Simpsons in either of those languages. Not in Arabic. But you can watch The Simpsons in either of those languages. You can watch Disney movies in either of those languages. You can listen to hip hop in all those languages. It's like with mom, it was hard because there was nothing. It was like nothing. Like nothing except talking to Guatemalans at the bank. And even then it kind of got annoying because it was like they don't want to talk to me every time they see me. So
they're like, oh, here you come again. I gotta go on break.
Oh yeah, because I'm a bleed. Oh, I'm a bleed them. One thing about that was people would tell you like when I went to this with the Mexican customers. Like you couldn't tell me that you spoke Spanish because I was gonna bleed an hour. I was gonna bleed a 43-minute conversation out of your ass before you was done.
Yep. All the vocab, all of it.
I'm stealing everything. Yeah, it was like it was but that's how you learn it.
Yeah.
But I think we've pretty much covered everything interesting. I guess before I end this podcast, I want to ask you, what would be, so I guess, I'm trying to say what I think Oprah would say. What would be a recommendation you would say, or some advice you would give to people who are trying to learn a language, or let's say, for example, even haven't taken the steps, but they kind of don't know where to begin? What would you say?
Um, I'd say make it a part of your life, honestly. So if you really want to learn it, especially we're not children, we're not 5 year olds. I have a 2 year old who's obviously bilingual now because we live in Mexico, but we're not that young where it just being around it, it just soaks it in. So you have to want to learn it. So things around your house, there's little things you can do. Learn the vocab for your TV, for if you love to cook, learn the vocab for the kitchen and your pots and pans, and maybe when you're watching your cooking shows, put the subtitles on in Spanish, or like just try to expose yourself. That's the biggest thing, is exposure, because you can't just basically look at grammar and do that forever and don't have exposure to people, because you'll lose the spark that makes you want to, like, oh, I really want to learn this language. Why? To communicate with who? With people.
Right.
You know? So that's the big thing.
I think for me, I only took a class in Spanish one time. I was at community college, and I quit after like 1 week, just because I thought it was boring. But
yeah, it is pretty boring at the beginning.
no, it is. But I think the magic of when you learn a language is not when you take a class, and is when you actually get to interact with people.
Yeah.
When you get to interact, and you get to laugh, and you get to joke, and that when you get to like that first moment that first time you said something to somebody outside of "¿Cómo estás?" and you might have been to like an older woman or older guy, and like their eyes, like you see their eyes light up, like, oh
Yep.
shit.
You feel so proud. You're like, oh yeah, it's your girl.
Man, I live for that moment, bro. That moment, that first moment where they're like, what the like, oh shit, like it's
And you
like,
can almost sometimes see the walls kind of like come down. You
yeah,
get the, oh, questions about where are you from? Oh, okay. Oh, well, tell me about that place. So you're like, it's a lot of times it's just the language barrier that will mess people up. Like, oh, they don't like me. No, they just can't communicate. And some of us are a little bit like standoffish, you know. But once you figure somebody can talk a little bit, you're like, oh, tell me more about you. How'd you learn it? Oh, that's so cool. You know, oh, let me teach you some more.
You know what's funny? I remember I went to, where was one job I worked at? I'm not gonna say where at, because I feel like she might figure out I was talking about her. There was this lady who, the cleaning ladies used to come, and there was these two Latina ladies, and they used to come and clean. And so the first time I said what's up to them, they they smiled, but kind of nodded away and walked away. Okay, cool. So one day I walked into the break room, and they were cleaning the break room. I started talking to them in Spanish, and next thing you know, the whole world opened up. Like, it was like,
Yep.
we talked for every day I worked in. I saw them. We talked for 30 and 40 minutes. She brought me cookies one time. Like, it was like this whole just like world opened up. And a lot of the time it can be the link. You know what it's like? Kind of is like, I go through this a lot. With like with being black. Like, if I work somewhere, if I get sent to a site and there's not a lot of black people, I meet that one old black dude who might be working there, who's cleaning or something like that. When he see me, he'll come talk to me. Hey, what's up, man? And it's kind of like we bond for a moment as being like the only two black
Yeah.
people in Jackson, California at the moment.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, you know. It's moment. I think for me, like this is what I always this is just from my perspective. I'm sorry, keeping you on the podcast way too long. I was supposed to end this 5 minutes
No,
ago.
you're good.
But
Good combo.
the thing that always fascinates me, it was never necessarily Latino culture that always fascinated me. It was just like being able to communicate with somebody from a different culture and communicate with them on their terms. Like, I was I was telling my friend about this in the last podcast. I've been trying to interview these guys who have a page talking about it. You ever met a Geechee before?
No, they're from Louisiana, right?
They're from South Carolina.
So, the 𝐁𝐥𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐡.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, funny thing, did you hear my last episode where I talked about that, the Geechees?
Yes.
Yeah, and I said I called her. I called that guy at the bank of Geechee. He got mad at me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that was offensive. So
We learned.
I learned. And so now I'm at the point now where I really want to, like, there's this one page they have called the Geechee Culture Experience. I'm trying to interview somebody from there because the concept of their culture just fascinates me so much. Like, that there's this group of people that still somewhat have like our native accent when we first came to America.
Yeah.
That fascinates the hell out of me. Like, they didn't lose. Like, it's kind of like it's that the idea that is just crazy to me. Like, it's kind of like because they speak like how all of our great whatevers came here and spoke English first.
Yeah.
Like, it's like this.
You can hear it in their voice, but we didn't really retain, that much African culture here in the U.S. just because of how slavery shook out here specifically.
No, but
you can see that African culture in other Latin American countries. They're a lot like Brazil.
Yeah,
wow.
Dude, no, that's what's so weird. And I wonder, it's funny you say that. When you go to Cuba, when you go to Puerto Rico, when you go to Dominican Republic, when you go to Brazil, even if you go to Nicaragua, with their I don't know what you would call it, with their Afro diasporas in those areas, you can still see their African deities.
Yeah.
You can still see that they worship 𝐬𝐤𝐬𝐻, 𝐬𝐤𝐬𝐬, whatever they call it, 𝐬𝐤𝐬, 𝐬𝐤𝐬. You can say that they still do candomblé. They still worship somewhat of they still do in Puerto Rico they do Santeria. Is that what it's called? Santeria. Santeria. Like, they do all that stuff. The only place you see that at is in Louisiana. Like that voodoo shit, voodoo.
Yeah.
And even then it's kind of
that cultural link here like that.
Yeah, and even then here it's kind of like
a thing.
Yeah, you have it in Louisiana, but it's stigmatized. Like, you look at it's kind of like witchcraft and shit. So it's kind of like it's why do you think that is?
I think because the type of slavery we had specifically in the U.S., they were very, very specific in breaking a community down. As far as the language, the culture, splitting people up, food, just creating chaos all over the map. There was no way to really retain anything. It was a little bit different on some of the islands. The experience wasn't any easier, just different.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
We were able to keep that a little bit longer versus here. We have it here. It's just spread out so much in everything. A lot of people think rock is from, I don't know who, whatever type of rock is from black people.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. Rock is from black.
Like, it's been so long, people don't know. They don't even associate it with it.
Yeah, we created blues, we created rock, we created jazz.
Yeah.
And but I don't know, it's African American culture is interesting. It's interesting because it's like there was a phase I went through in my life where I was like really trying to like I used to be an Africa nerd. I mean, I was just everything. I never wore dashiki and stuff like that just because I couldn't afford. I couldn't afford Amazon Prime at the time. I was like 16, but so I was so that's real. So it was like, but I used to read about like all the countries from Africa, like Nigeria, Sudan, Tunisia, Egypt. Like I was reading all their cultures and the histories of their empires. I ain't gonna lie to you. When I took my blood test, I was kind of upset because there's this one country in Sudan. I really it's called Sudan. I was praying to God I had Sudanese blood in me. Sudan is basically.
You're like, I feel connected. These are my people.
I was praying. Sudan is like it's basically modern day Nubia. It's basically modern day Nubia. So I was like, bro, please let me be part Sudanese. Man, I took that shit, nigga. I ain't even have a percentage. I ain't have a point. I was more French than Sudanese. I was so fucking depressed. I was like, no, no, like cause bro, I'm gonna tell you how if I'd have took it and I'd have found out I was that, I would have stopped. I would have stopped Spanish and Portuguese totally. I would have learned whatever they speak out there. But I took it and I was like I'm 42% Nigerian, I'm 23% Cameroonian, 10% Malian, and I think the rest was 4% French, 3% Spaniard, and everything else was just like 1% of white countries that I don't really know how to pronounce yet. So it was I don't know. I bring all that up because when I was going through that phase where I was really into African culture, I was trying to find, like, I think that I'm already I guess like my identity, because I always felt like African American identity was maybe linked to African identity to a certain extent. I'm just now getting to the age where I'm like, I think we have to accept that our culture in and of itself has its own identity. It might not be necessarily the way I would want it to be, where that we have quote unquote our own African language that we speak. That's the only thing that's the thing that kind of makes me jealous, I guess, when I meet people from different races, is that they come here with the language.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like that. You have your own little code. You have your own like I like that thing. Like with Sikhs, like with Indian Sikhs, like the men wear those metal bracelets that are like weapons. I guess I forgot what they're called. Yeah. I wish we had some shit like that.
Something.
Like they wear that. They wear like they wear swords, like these little swords, these little miniature daggers too. Like it's a cultural thing. We need that. It could even be a gun. I'd be cool with that. Yeah. Like what if like
some type of tradition, I guess.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna cut the podcast. I've held you here for an hour. We went from talking about Spanish to French to talking about African traditions and why we need to give our kids guns and shit. I feel like I'm taking the conversation. I'm taking a totally different direction. Like, we were supposed to be talking about languages, but okay. But beautiful people of the Black and Spanish podcast, thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the family. This has been great. Maracuya de la vida. Would you you have any parting words?
No. Thank you for having me. It was great talking to you. I can't wait to tune in and hear, what's up for the next episodes, and it's just big things for you. I can definitely tell big things for you coming up.
Fingers crossed. Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry.
No,